Good afternoon for those in Australia and good evening for those in the US. Thank you for joining us today for this webinar with Osagie Imasogie, Chairman, and Oludare Odumosu, Global CEO of Zelira Therapeutics. Welcome today and thank you for your time. Today we'll be covering off the recent announcement that Zelira made to the market regarding the $8.6 million US of cornerstone funding for clinical trials of its HOPE-1 autism spectrum disorder medicine. As usual, if you have any questions, please type them in the Q&A. I will moderate a Q&A after we hear from Osagie and Dare, and I might hand across to you, Osagie, now to take us through the initial part of the pack. I know Dare's got a lot he'd like to talk about, and then we'll cover Q&A after that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ron. Good evening and good morning to everyone, depending on where you are in the world. Ron, would you be kind enough to go to the next slide? All right. So again, thank you all for attending. We're very, very pleased to have this webinar because we announced last week a transitional pivotal event for our company, which essentially is the conclusion of one of our products going through what we've talked about many times before, our unique launch, learn, and develop strategy. Just to remind everyone what that strategy is all about. Because of what is happening in the world of cannabinoids, there's a unique opportunity for us to get products into the market before we do all the traditional formal clinical trials. That opportunity we've taken full advantage of. So we used a very intense scientific method to formulate proprietary formulations that are unique, that we have filed patent applications on for a product called HOPE. There are actually two versions of it, HOPE-1 and HOPE-2. Both products target the autism spectrum disorder, and they target different symptoms that are manifested within the autism spectrum disorder. We were able to launch these products into the marketplace in 4 jurisdictions. We launched them initially in Pennsylvania, and then in the US, we launched it in Washington, DC, and in the state of Louisiana. And we also launched the product in Australia under the TGA's Special Access Program. And the whole purpose of this was to get these products into the hands of patients in a real world setting. And we were able to do that. In the case of Pennsylvania, which is the first state in which it was launched, over 9.5 million doses of HOPE have been dispensed into the hands of patients. Just to make sure you understand why that is so important. This product is targeting autism spectrum disorder that tends to manifest itself in children. So for 9.5 million doses to be dispensed, it means that the parents or the guardians of these children were comfortable enough, after getting a recommendation from a licensed physician that they could use this product, they were comfortable enough under the Pennsylvania state's medical cannabis program to come and buy this product. They had to pay out of pocket for it because insurance doesn't cover it in the States, and give it to their children who have the autism spectrum disorder, and give it to them consistently. So a total of 9.5 million doses, more than that. And this has occurred over a 3-year period, which means that we have a long period of time of really getting a firm understanding of what this product does. So that is the launch portion of what we've done. We launched into the market in 4 jurisdictions, and we then went to the next stage, which is the learn portion. In the learn phase, we will now want to learn from our patients and those who are buying our products. We want to learn from them 4 crucial things. Number 1, what dose are they using? Number 2, what frequency are they using that dose? Number 3, what side effects are they experiencing? And number 4, what efficacy are they experiencing? Those are the 4 questions that you need to answer when you do a clinical trial, a formal clinical trial. But we could learn the answers to those questions before we did the formal clinical trial because of this strategy that we've taken. And we've captured all that data. In some instances, we published a white paper as a result of the studies we had done. In other instances, we had third parties who were scientists who are independent of us, who looked at the data and reached their own conclusions and published their own conclusions. So we have a very good understanding of the safety of these products, because 3 years, just in Pennsylvania alone, we have had no safety signal. The same thing in Washington, D.C., the same thing in Louisiana, and the same thing in Australia. We haven't gotten any signal that there was a safety problem with this product, and it's been in the hands of patients and physicians. We also have a sense of the efficacy of this product in terms of whether it works or not. And the best way of thinking about that is to think about the fact that parents and guardians are spending money out of their own pocket to buy and give their children this product. And they've been doing that for over 3 years, consistently. We also have some videos before and after of patients who have the autism spectrum disorder. And then they take our product and we see the outcome of that. So we have a pretty good sense of both the efficacy and the safety of this product, safety being the most important thing. So having done all of that, that is the launch and the learn portion, we are now in the 3rd phase. And the 3rd phase is now to conduct formal clinical trials. And that is the develop strategy. But we are doing this with a very high level of knowledge and of confidence. Just to put this into stark profile, I've been involved in getting multiple drugs through the FDA in my career across a range of therapeutic areas. I have never been in a position where we start a phase 1 study with anything more than animal data and a hypothesis as to what the product will do in humans. Because if you recall, your phase 1 study is to prove safety. And usually it's a relatively small study, somewhere in the region of 30 to 50 subjects. And usually there are people who do not have the medical condition you are seeking to treat. And you usually introduce the drug to them at a very low dose, a dose much lower than the one you think will be effective, just to make sure that the first time in humans of the drug is safe. Well, in this case, we're starting our phase 1 study with over 9.5 million doses having been given to people who have the medical condition and having been given to them over a 3-year period. So I've never been in a situation where we've started a phase 1 study with this level of information going into the study. It's difficult to expect that we would do a more formal study in phase 1 and the results will not be positive as to safety, because we have a huge amount of safety data already. Remember, phase 2 is to try to prove efficacy. It's usually a larger study than your phase 1, and usually this is the first time you would introduce this product to people who have the medical condition that you're seeking to treat. In this case, we already have over 9.5 million doses that have been given to people who have the medical condition we're trying to treat. And it's been given to them over a long period of time, of 3 years. So we have a pretty good level of comfort that our phase 2 study should be positive. And then your phase 3 study is usually a larger version of your phase 2 study, just to make sure that a broader range of humans who are exposed to your drug still show the same level of safety and efficacy. Well, in this case, again, we have over 9.5 million doses that have been dispensed across 4 jurisdictions over 3 years. So we think the number of subjects that have been exposed is probably much larger than the number of subjects that we're going to have to use in a phase 3 formal study. So in a nutshell, we have a pretty good level of comfort about what the outcome will be in our phase 1, our phase 2, and our phase 3 study. So we have taken our strategy, the strategy we told the market we were going to use. We have focused, laser focused on it. We have based it on hard science. We have done the launch. We have done the learn. And now we're about to do the develop. And for us, one of the most important aspects, and why we're very excited about where we are now, is that this is a unique strategy. This is a different strategy. And when you do something that is different, it's usually hard, and it's very hard to convince third parties who have not been exposed to it before because it's never been done. Well, we were fortunate to have lengthy conversations with Cantheon, who are sophisticated investors who set up a fund that is specifically focused on people like us, where they're poster child, where they're focused on providing financial support to people who are taking cannabinoids and taking them into formal trials. That's exactly what we're doing. And we were able to take them through the logic of our launch, learn, and develop strategy. They were able to do their thorough diligence, which was quite extensive, and they were able to get comfortable that this strategy makes sense. In fact, in their views, they don't think we're going to need to do the phase 1 study at all. So that's why they structured their deal to start from phase 2 and phase 3, which is what they expect we need to do. We appreciate that. We understand that. And we think that's a pretty high likelihood that that will be the outcome. But until we have our conversation with the FDA, we're going to continue to think about doing a phase 1, and then a phase 2, and then a phase 3. It is possible that in the dialogue with the FDA, Cantheon's views may be correct, and we think they are. But for us, we're going to continue to plan to do a phase 1, a phase 2, and a phase 3. We also were able to secure a really world-class CRO to help us on the develop side. And that is a crucial aspect, because one of the big challenges that people are facing within this space is, how do you legitimately get in front of the FDA? How do you do that from a regulatory perspective? And what we've been able to do is to identify a world-class CRO that has the appropriate DEA and FDA licenses. They have a Schedule I license to be able to legitimately go in front of the FDA with an IND to work on cannabinoids. So that was crucial. The second thing, they have a manufacturing facility that has been reviewed by both the DEA and the FDA, and are in a position to manufacture both our clinical trial materials, that is the drugs we need for our trial, and our commercial materials, to the extent that we get it approved by the FDA, from their facility. So that's crucial. We've got that sorted out. The third thing, they have a wonderful footprint in Australia, and they have a wonderful footprint in the US, which is exactly what we need, because we are a global company with a footprint in Australia and a footprint in the US. And so we will do a trial that covers both countries. We're going to do part of the trial in Australia. I'm going to do part of the trial in the US. So we're very, very excited and very happy that we've got Cantheon as our CRO. So at the end of the day, there are 3 things that become very important when you start thinking about where we are now in Zelira. What is the technical likelihood of success of this product? That's number 1. What is the regulatory likelihood of success of this product? That's number 2. And the third one is, what is the commercial likelihood of success of this product? And those three things are the value drivers for us. And as you get comfortable with those three things, the value of our company materially increases. So I'm going to hand it over now to Oludare, who will take you through why we are comfortable on each of those three things. The technical, that is the scientific likelihood of success, the regulatory likelihood of success, and the commercial likelihood of success. Oludare, over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you everybody for joining us for this webinar. At Zelira Therapeutics, we have said repeatedly that we are laser focused on addressing areas of significant therapeutic need, areas of unmet need, and areas of significant value for our company and in return for our investment community. We've said that repeatedly, and I'm very, very happy tonight here in the US and it's daytime in Australia to join you to share with you, as our chairman has said, some of the reasons why we're very excited. As a point of background, as a point of reference, in fact, one of the factors that centers us when we think about autism spectrum disorder is that this is a fast-growing condition as a result of better screening and other accesses or other developments in the medical space. We have found that there is a greater incidence. By background, I have a master's in public health, epidemiology and biostatistics. And when you think about the rate of increase or the incidence of autism, it is quite disturbing. Not too long ago, just within the last 10 years, we were talking about 1 in over 100. And very quickly, inside of the last 6 years, we're talking about 1 in 60. And here we are now in the last 3-4 years, we're talking about 1 in 44 children have been identified as being somewhere along the spectrum, according to the CDC. And also the rate, as I said, of growth is quite significant because the CDC also estimates that in addition to the children, about 2.2% of American adults are also on the spectrum. That accounts for over 5 million adults. And as I said, this increment in cases is a result of multiple factors: increased advancements in medicine, awareness, education, but all put together. What we do know is that the population that constitutes the addressable market is quite significant. In the US alone, as our example, that addressable market is projected to reach over $4.5 billion. So when you think about the value proposition that lies within this space, and hence a need and also a focus, why it is a focus of ours, it is because, one, the commercial values there, two, at the core of what we do is helping the patients and impacting the lives of patients in our drug design, in our drug commercialization, and in our access focus. So when you think about this, all of this tied together because we are addressing a very, an area of significant need. But most importantly, we come back to the patients and we look at what is available on the market today. In the United States, for example, the drugs that are approved for the treatment of symptoms associated with autism spectrum disorder are actually not originally indicated for the treatment of autism spectrum disorder. These are either antipsychotics, antidepressants, stimulants, and the likes of them. And all of these drugs carry with them significant safety risks, significant side effect profiles, significant issues in addition to dealing with the symptoms of ASD. So again, it is very important that we continue to emphasize why we're in this space. That is, the growth of this space is, one, it's global. We use the US as an example. But the growth of this space is global, and the demand for effective treatment is only going to increase. So we take this very, very seriously. And as Mr. Imasogie has described, that is why we were quite rigorous in the development of our strategy, our launch, learn, and develop strategy. Next slide, please. So over the last, since 2018, when this product was officially, when we stepped into this space and began to work on the development of this product, and then launched it in 2019, first in Pennsylvania, then subsequently in other jurisdictions in the United States, keeping in mind that the United States has 36 odd separate jurisdictions that have very distinct and in some cases very different laws and regulations that drive and govern the cannabis programs in those states. So we think of those as very separate jurisdictions. So 3 in the United States, 1 in Australia. And if you recall, we announced last year our expansion of Hope into the New Zealand market as well, which we're excited about. And that continues to grow the jurisdictions of access to the Hope range of products. Very specifically, what was very powerful, as Mr. Chairman has said, is that we layered science-backed learning, both from third-party outcomes participants, as well as in-clinic physician-based clinical trials, as such as was conducted in Australia in partnership with Emiria Clinics, for which the results were published. This slide, this presentation is going to be available on our website. These are actually live links to white papers that have been published, live links to before and after videos, one of which is a video of an Australian patient and family that was followed by one of the major broadcasting networks in Australia. And this patient was followed before they had access to this therapy, Hope 1, and followed through their therapy and the report. What this does is that it shows that in real patients, in real people, in real families that have been impacted with the debilitating symptoms of autism spectrum disorder, who have had access to using Hope, specifically Hope 1 in this case, have either participated in outcome survey or standardized, validated, clinic-based observational trials through their physicians, and these results have been published. I encourage us to, once we've had a chance, to please look at this if you haven't been able to access any of these slides, and you will see real evidence of our real-world data that we've reported, which is part of our launch and learn strategy. Next slide, please. Specifically, I'd like to highlight the results of the real-world data that was published in Australia. We published it last year, where patients were investigated for the effects of using Hope for some of the symptoms associated with autism spectrum disorder. One of the very important endpoints is the improvement in what you call the clinical global impression, which is a measure of severity of their disease, of their symptoms of a disease or symptoms associated with the disease, as measured by the physician. In this particular case, this was done by Emiria Clinics. About 45 patients were followed and in terms of the age distribution, as young as 14 years old, the youngest being 5 years old, 5.1 years old, and as old as 14 years old. So the age range is somewhere between 5 and 14. And these patients were followed for a mean period of about 5 months, about 4.8 months. And in some cases, some of the patients were followed for much longer, up to about 9 months. What is very powerful, and I want to draw your attention to, is when you look at month 1, there was you see a distribution of patients who reported some form of improvement. In some cases, some even reported their symptoms worsening. But as they progressed the use of Hope 1, and by month 5, practically every single patient had transitioned from either worse or no change to minimally improved, all through to much improved. This is very, very powerful, in addition to other data sets that gives us the confidence. So when Mr. Imasogie talks about the risk of commercial success, again, in the state of Pennsylvania alone, we have over 9 odd million doses. When you layer on data from other jurisdictions, including Australia, that gives us comfort because patients are already paying for it. Families are paying for it. I am a parent myself now, and I do not know any parent who will repeatedly subject their child or their ward to use of a medication that doesn't work at all. So we feel very comfortable, or we have a greater sense of confidence as we transition into our developed phase that this should be commercially successful, in addition to other factors that give us comfort. Next slide, please. So along that line, as I was saying in my explanation of why we feel that we have confidence in terms of the commercial play, I have addressed the commercial likelihood of success by way of we have millions of doses. In terms of the technical likelihood of success, keep in mind that when we originally formulated the Hope range of products, we formulated it as a tincture. Why? At the time the products were formulated, the best way to suspend cannabinoid extracts was in some form of an oil base because of the chemical nature of cannabinoids. So we did that, and we were able to successfully commercialize the medicines as a liquid, as a tincture, as an oral suspension. But I tell you today, as we've reported, Zelira over the last year has done a few things. One, we've been able to develop a technology or a technology platform that can capture cannabinoids, which is a very honey-like substance. And our proprietary technology allows us to convert cannabinoids, or to capture them and convert them into pharmaceutical grade, using pharmaceutical grade ingredients to convert it into free-flowing powder that does not sit out of the powder bed. This allows us then to create pharmaceutical grade, regulatorily approved ingredient matrix for capsules and tablets. These are formats of medicines that are one familiar with the medical space, with physicians, with the pharmaceutical industry, and allows us to create substantially consistent pharma-grade products. I'm excited to tell you that by way of our assessment of technical likelihood of success, we have converted Hope 1 using Zelira Zerati technology into capsules. It is this capsule form that will then be used for the clinical trial in the developed phase. Next slide, please. So just this slide, you've seen it before. It is a summary of our Zerati, our proprietary Zerati technology, one that solves the problem of difficulty with creating free-flow powder-based drugs. And now we've been able to solve that. And in practical terms, we have applied it to Hope 1, which we are taking into formal clinical trials. And we're very excited about this. And as well, it forms the basis. We've also licensed this technology in the United States, as we reported last year. Next slide, please. So, by way of regulatory likelihood of success, as Mr. Chairman has said, we've thought through all of the factors that should allow us to be successful. One is in identifying the right CRO with the right background, with the right pedigree, with the right track record to carry us through this journey. Secondly, we have outlined a strategy that we believe touch all the walls should the FDA come back to us and say you need to do any of the required steps, we have set in place as part of our strategy a path that should give us the best likelihood of success as we move Hope 1 through from an IND submission all the way through a new drug application submission, and in between conducting all the pivotal trials, whether it's a phase 1, a phase 2, or a phase 3. So this slide outlines, and we're putting it out there so you can see that we've put together a strategy that we believe makes sense and works. Next slide, please. So, and also we've published here a summary of that strategy within a timeline, quite aggressive, but quite sensible in our reasoning. Why? Because we have significantly de-risked, as Mr. Chairman said, our process. We have contemplated, and our launch, learn, and develop strategy has allowed us to, has given us understanding within confidence to be able to think through the right time frame for which we can achieve all of these steps. And we believe that within a 36, inside of a 48-month window, we should be able to deliver a new drug in Hope 1 through the US FDA. Next slide, please. And with this, I return back to Mr. Chairman.
So how have we been able to think of getting the right structure to fund this program? We're going to need approximately $34 million to do this. That amount will take us all the way through to what we hope, fingers crossed, if everything works well, we hope could be an FDA approval. And we're hopeful, as Gary just said, that we can execute on this in that 36 to 48-month window. To enable us to do this efficiently, we've created an SPV, a special purpose vehicle, which is essentially another company that is a subsidiary of Zelira. We've put into that vehicle our Hope 1 asset. In exchange of Zelira doing that, we hold 55% of that vehicle. That vehicle is called Zelira Hope 1 LLC. So we own 55% of that. The $34 million of capital that we're going to need to execute on the strategy, they own the balance of the 45%. In that context, Cantheon has stepped up to the plate, and they've committed 8.6 million of the 34 million. And because they are the first to come to the table, because they are the lead and the anchor, they get a slight premium on that. And so the maximum that their 8.6 million converts to within Zelira Hope 1 would be 12.9% of that platform. So we're very excited about this structure. We put it out there, and what we're now doing, working with Cantheon, working with SW4, which is an investment bank based out of the UK that we have a good relationship with, and working within our own efforts and our own contacts, we're going to be focused on raising the balance of the capital. And we're off to the races. And again, these funds, what we're seeking is commitment for the funds, and then we will draw it down as we go along and as we need it. Next slide, please. I spoke earlier on about our CRO. This slide just gives you a synopsis of that CRO. We're extraordinarily pleased with them because of their 2 footprints in the US and in Australia. Because of their track record, they have successfully taken a cannabinoid through the FDA all the way through to approval. So this is not their first rodeo. They know how to do this, and they've got the facilities to do it. So we're really pleased with that. And we've known them for quite a while, and it's taken us a while to talk to them and go through this. So this is not something that happened overnight. We've been working on this for quite a while. Next slide, please. It's important to also keep in mind, as we have consistently said to our investors and to the market about our launch, learn, and develop strategy, we have also consistently talked about our multiple shots on goal strategy. So it's important to keep in mind that we have executed on what we said we were going to do. We're very excited about Hope 1 going into formal clinical trials in the US, but we also still have multiple shots on goal. So the value of our company is actually much more than just our Hope 1 strategy. We've got multiple shots on goals, and this slide just reminds everyone of that. And we remain excited about the multiple shots on goals because we think other shots will also come through very successfully. Next slide, please. It's also important to note, we've said this multiple times, but it's worth emphasizing again. We are a biopharmaceutical company. And if you want to create value in the world of biopharmaceuticals, one thing that you must have is intellectual property protection. So if you look at our patent estate, we've got approximately 41 patents that have been granted or allowed. We've got another 103 that we have under prosecution. That's huge for a company of our size. And we continue to provide resources to support that effort because we know that at the end of the day, a major driver of our value is our IP portfolio, and we're very proud of that. Again, just to remind people, multiple shots on goals, strong IP, and we are in the business of creating drugs derived from cannabinoids. Next slide, please. We're open to questions. Ron, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Osagie, and thank you, Dare. Just to remind everybody, if you have a question, please type it into the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. We've already had a few questions that came in advance of the webinar, so I might start with those, and then we can hopefully have sufficient time to cover off others that come through. So firstly, in terms of the extra capital that needs to be raised in the Hope 1 SPV, can you please outline whether that additional capital of $26 million US to be raised in the SPV by SW4 partners? Just in terms of that, can you discuss what the timeline for that is and how critical is the extra capital to begin FDA trials of Hope?
All right, so 3 questions rolled into that. So let's try to deal with each one of them. We mentioned earlier on, and we mentioned in the press release that we're working with SW4. They're a very good investment bank. They were part of a larger investment bank in the UK. They are absolutely focused in the cannabinoid space. They know what they're doing. They're experienced bankers. We've had great relationships with them. So they are working assiduously to help us on the additional funding. We are also using our Rolodex. Just think about this. We're very pleased with Cantheon, but clearly they're not the only ones out there who are interested in this space and who are committed to providing capital for this space. The fact that Cantheon was the first to step up, we're thrilled by it. And the fact that they've stepped up in a meaningful way as 25%, we're equally thrilled by that. So we are full-blown working right now on raising the balance of the capital. And we think that between ourselves, between SW4, between Cantheon, we have enough players at the table. We would not have made a public announcement about Cantheon's binding term sheet with us if we were not comfortable that we could raise the balance of the capital. As to the timing, I'm a little bit of an Oliver Twist. I would love for it to have occurred yesterday, but this take the time that they take. We are, as I said, we are working on it already, and we've got a number of players that we're already speaking with. So we expect it to be relatively quick. That would be our preference, but we don't have a gun to our heads. The quicker we can do it, the better, and we're going to work hard to do that, which leads to the third question. Our preference would be to identify all the capital before we actually dive into the trials. But there are those who would argue that we should not, that we should start the trials, get some additional data, and then increase the price at which subsequent players come in. So that's why we're very comfortable with where we are. We have flexibility. We've already started working with our friends in engineering, in terms of all the work we need to do to start working on the IND. And we're going to continue to drive that process. So our expectation is that, as we've already said, that we'll have an IND in place before the end of this calendar year. Our target is to try to do it earlier than that, and we'll be off to the races. So hopefully I've answered the 3 questions that were subsumed in the question you asked.
Thank you, Osagie. Another question on the extra capital. Is the total capital proposed to be raised in the Hope 1 SPV sufficient to meet the FDA clinical trial costs?
The answer is yes. And for those who understand the pharma world, that is remarkable. It is remarkable that in the world of pharma, a relatively small amount in the region of 34 odd million bucks can get us to a registration package that we intend to submit with the FDA. Most pharmaceutical products cost much more money. In fact, what the data indicates is that the average period, and I emphasize the word average, the average period that it takes to develop a pharmaceutical product is 12 years. And the average cost is between $1 and $2 billion. Here, we're talking about getting a pharmaceutical product approved by the FDA in 36 to 48 months at a cost of around $34 million. So this is part of why we're very excited. And that's why we also feel that we stand a good chance of raising the balance of the capital. Because the funding that is required, because of what we've done in the launch, learn, and develop strategy, we've been able to cut out and streamline our clinical trial strategy very efficiently because we know more. We know more than animals data and a hypothesis. And that allows us to turbocharge the trials. Yes.
Technical question that's come in before we look at some of the other questions that have come through ahead of this. This question is the clinical outcome only focused on maladaptive behaviors? Has the data shown same or similar results as ABA therapy? Are you measuring skills assessment for Hope 1 versus ABA therapy?
Dari, I will let you handle that.
Yeah, Ron, so thank you very much. So the validated assessment tools that are available in the medical space to understand and help diagnose, effectively diagnose, or in some cases manage some of the behavioral as well as symptomatic expressions of ASD include the ABA and other tools. When you go and look through the clinical studies that have been done in the space that range from looking at anxiety all the way to psycho indications, you see the use of these tools. Simply answer the question, the answer to this particular question is that our investigative process, our clinical trial protocol would include all of the FDA validated assessment tools to be able to drive a very, very robust trial and come up with crisp endpoints around what we've indicated. Some of those are behavioral indications within our primary and secondary, and some of those are not. So across that spectrum of validated tools, we have already set our path to within our protocol to have that included. Yes, as most of them are standard actually.
Okay, great. The SPV model. So you previously used it for RAF5 acne treatments. You now announced that you're using it for the Hope 1 development. Would you consider establishing an SPV for any other cannabinoid-based products in Zelira's portfolio?
I think the answer is that we will do the most prudent thing to maximize value. I mean, from our perspective, there is obviously a misvaluation of our company right now in terms of its public value. I mean, the math is simple. It's relatively straightforward. Everyone can run the math. And so to the extent that the SPV vehicle strategy allows us to attract meaningful capital that will enable us to focus on maximizing value, we will continue to use it. I think that's the most, clear message we can give.
Yep. Okay, and then in terms of ease of raising capital, is the SPV model limited to products in the development stage of their strategy?
Well, remember in the question, the last question you just asked, we used it for an OTC product. We used it for our RAV5 line, so clearly we can use it as we think is prudent. It's not necessarily limited to just our development assets. But having said that, the biotech world understands development assets and understands clinical development and gets quite excited about it. And so it's a logical thing for us to use for that sector. But we have used it for non-development assets in the past, and we might consider it going forward.
Let's run the clock forward a little bit. And you've run the FDA clinical trials. They've been successful. What would be the prospective timeline to launch HOPE-1 into the market?
Well, as we've already indicated in the slide deck, and Oludare spoke about this, our target is to try to get these trials done in the next 36 to 48 months. If we're successful in doing that, that's when we get it onto the market. The beauty about this is that we know a lot. We know a lot. We have a high level of comfort on the two things that are most crucial, the safety and the efficacy of the product. So with that level of comfort, you can really turbocharge your trials, right? The reason trials usually take time is we don't know. We don't know a lot. So we have to discharge risk by doing things sequentially. When you know a lot, you can you can move things along a little bit faster. And the earlier we get to the market, the earlier we start generating revenue.
What you touched on it, Dare, when you were doing the slides, but maybe we can just dwell on it a little bit more. What other products are currently in the market treating ASD, and how does HOPE-1 differ based on your understanding? What gives you the confidence that there's this fantastic market for this product?
Side effect profile. I mean, you heard me say that the drugs that are on the market, which I listed, but in that slide, are come with significant side effects. These are antipsychotics, these are stimulants, these are sleep medications, these are antidepressants, the combination of which have other issues. And above all, these drugs are actually not indicated for autism spectrum disorder. So when you think about what we do know about HOPE-1, in real patients who have the condition with over 9.5 million doses across multiple jurisdictions, this is before we go into formal trials, that's part of what gives us confidence. Two is we do already know. We have reported in actual white papers, one of which was published last year, about our understanding of the improvement in the severity of symptoms. In that same study, we gained additional understanding about tolerability. In that same study, we gained additional information about a physician's assessment of safety and other factors of comfort within a trial. These things we call potential endpoints that we've been able to measure. When you take all of that together, from safety through efficacy to dose ranging, we know a lot about HOPE-1 going into this trial, and taken together, that gives us comfort against what is already, what we know about the side effect profile. One thing I always say to people is, if we were to publish blindly without putting the drug on it, the side effect profile of the drugs that are currently on the market, and ask parents to come in and just look at and say, this drug has this side effect. Would you use this for your child or your ward? And I leave you with that thought. But that's what we have on the market today. It's very alarming, the rate of the side effects that come with the drugs. So we feel that with what we know about HOPE, going into this trial, we have a very, very good shot at safety, all the way through efficacy as we design and run our trials.
Thanks. There aren't any questions in, so I might ask a question. And it goes back to this SPV structure, and you touched on it a bit, Osagie, but what do these sophisticated investors that have experience in investing in cannabinoid medication, what do they see? Like, what enticed them in to invest into the SPVs? What do they see that ultimately at the moment general equity investors don't seem to be seeing? Because the investments have been made at a substantial multiple to market cap in each, right?
Yeah, it's very simple. It's very simple. They understand reality. They understand the pharmaceutical industry. We are not a cannabis company. We are not, what is our canopy? How much flour are we selling? How much did we make yesterday? That's not Zelira. This is a biopharmaceutical company. The value is in the drugs we create. GW created a drug targeting a rare form of seizure. They got it approved in the US. And because of our unique healthcare system in the US, because it was a rare form of seizures, almost all health insurance plans covered it. Within the US, we are the last large market where the government does not directly control the price of drugs. So what did our friends in GW do? They charged roughly $36,000 per patient per year. And it was covered by insurance. And they eventually got sold, they got acquired for over $7 billion. That's biopharmaceuticals. It's not pennies, it's not what pound of hemp, of cannabis did you sell yesterday? It's not that. It's patent protected, clinically validated, regulatory approved drugs that can give comfort to physicians, comfort to patients, comfort to pharmacists, and that can be prescribed and covered by health insurance plans. That's what we're in the business of doing. So our sophisticated investors, they get that, they understand that. And when we show them an opportunity where we know as much as we know, we've answered the 4 basic questions. What dose do you take? What frequency do you take that dose? What is your side effect experience? What is your efficacy? And we show them a path to how to get through the regulatory likelihood of success, the technical likelihood of success, and the commercial likelihood of success. And we show it in a time frame that is ridiculously short, 36 to 48 months, and we put a tag on it of price that is a fraction of what is spent to develop drugs, and we have patents on it. I mean, what is there not to get? So they get it, and they understand the value that we can create. Let's put this into context. What do biotech investors fund? They fund people who come to them with an animal model, animal data, and a hypothesis, a story, a theory of how this drug will work in human beings. And they fund that. So compare with what they fund to what we fund. Look at the quote from Cantheon. Did you see the quote? They said, this is in stark contrast to what they normally see. So what you're finding is that people get it. And if you understand, and this is what we've been saying for the last 2-3 years, that Zelira is a biopharmaceutical company. We are focused on creating drugs. We are doing what GW is doing, but we're doing it faster, cheaper, with a higher level of confidence. The market, Daria was talking about the market for autism spectrum disorder in the US, $4-5 billion. There has not been a single drug approved in the US that was originally developed to treat autism. We might be the first if we are fortunate to get it approved. Just I mean, imagine what that means with a better safety profile. I mean, so that's it. They get it. They understand. They hear what we've been saying. They understand what we've been saying. But much more importantly, they put their money where their mouth is. And they funded and committed to, they funded the last one and they committed to funding their portion of the SPV. So that's the simple answer. There's no mystery here. They have the same data that we've shared with the market. They just understand it and appreciate it.
On that note, we've hit up to our time limit. Thank you very much for spending your evening with us, explaining the SPV, talking about what you're doing going forward. And clearly I can see the excitement in your faces around the opportunities now ahead for Hope One and for Zelira. So thank you very much, and look forward to giving further updates to the market. And if anyone has any other further questions, please feel free to contact myself or Georgina at Atomic Markets, and we're happy to facilitate answers to any further questions. But thank you very much. Have a nice evening.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
Thank you, Osagie.